So are you still quite hurt by the things that you read?
Well, a lot of the rubbish I don't read, to be honest, because as Jerry said, you have to question the motives of people like that. People who want to insist on something without evidence, people who want to bring, you know, more pain and suffering to a family who are already vulnerable, who are already suffering. You really have to question those people, and I don't value their opinion, you know, because I wouldn't behave like that. So, you know, you can't be, you know, distracted from what is important, which is Madeleine, by people like that. The majority of people are good people, they're the quiet majority, and I strongly believe they're the ones that want to find Madeleine.
And you're appealing for more funds. What happened to the money that you had previously? There's around, I understand, 350,000 left. What happened to the previous money that was donated?
Okay. I think the first thing to say is that the priority today is very much about asking the public to help us with a petition to get the government to do more. We have been fortunate, although it's not helped us get what we want, by having a fund, and the fund was set up in response to people offering money, and it was set up properly, and the fund is very accountable. It's independent auditors. We have a fund administrator who's got lots of experience, but the vast majority of the money in the fund's been spent directly on search fees. It's obviously supported other things, awareness campaigns. We have a part-time coordinator now. We have a media liaison to deal with things like this here and in Portugal and trying to get our messages across. But most of the money, the vast majority of it's been spent.
We've had to fund an investigation for 2 years now, which, as you can imagine, with several more than that personnel, it costs money, you know. And
staff, expenses, interviewing. We run a 24-hour helpline which is available. We run a website that costs money, updating it, communications, you know, all of these things do add up, and without having the fund there wouldn't be a meaningful search today.
You've also spent money on your own investigators, as you said, and there have been reports that some of these detectives have taken money but they're not delivered. They're dodgy detectives, if you like. How can you reassure people that money won't be spent on people like that in the future?
Well, we've very much had, for the last 2 and a bit years, with a Dave Edgar, who's a very experienced detective who was near retirement. He's been working with us. He's very much accountable for the spend. He feels he can justify every penny. But at the same time, I hope public realise as well, as directors of the fund, and particularly when we were arguido and there was no search going on, that it was incumbent upon us to continue a search in very, very difficult circumstances. So we have made decisions along the way which have always, we felt, been in the best interest of the search to find Madeleine. And we're very accountable. All the expenses are there, receipts, and we've got quite a tight-knit team working on this. But we need them. Without it, there will be no one there to go and interview people and follow up leads.
But what about some people might say that the judgment of the trustees is sometimes questionable because you have employed people like Kevin Halligan, who's now facing extradition.
Well, you know, we're doing the best in very, very difficult circumstances. I think that's key. We always take advice. Due diligence is done, references are sought, and you know, the fund is accountable, and as directors we're responsible for making those decisions.
And there are also reports that you'd fallen out with some of the trustees, with your brother and your boss, who have resigned.
Ah, that's nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. Why do you say we're falling out? I mean, the fund has changed over 3 years, 3.5 years. It was very different. Initially, we weren't on the board because we were based in Portugal.
You know, 3.5 years ago that we'd be in this situation today. It's a big commitment, you know, and things have changed. We've got different phases in the last 3.5 years, so inevitably there's going to be changes.
So it's not that you've had differences over the way the money was spent? Or
no, not at all. In fact, any of the changes we've made recently have to make the fund more efficient and more responsive. Kate and I always feel, you know, there's still an urgency. It doesn't get easier, and we don't need a large board as such. We're trying to run the fund like a small business in many ways, so that it's focused and that the directors, by and large, are hands-on and responsible for certain areas. Kate and I are integral to all the parts of it. We've got legal advice, we've got specialist media, liaison, etc. We've got a retired accountant, and we've got Kate's uncle who is there and is a good governance sort of person. So all of these are taken on board, and we've got a very experienced fund administrator as well.
Have you talked about the petition?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. So, you've mentioned the petition already. Just how many signatures are you hoping to collect? What are you asking people to sign for? What's the point of the petition?
Well, the whole point is to call on the governments, both the UK and the Portuguese government, to do more in the search for Madeleine. And the first thing we feel that fundamental is that they undertake a complete review of the case. Preferably it should be independent, and we want transparency as well. And we're asking the public to help us in that regard.
And in terms of, you only have 350,000 left now. How long do you worry that you can keep going on for if you don't get more donations? Well,
we're always, as directors of the fund, we're always looking at that, because one of the remit is for us to fulfil the objectives of the fund, and the fund is to try and find Madeleine and bring those responsible to justice. So there's always an agenda item about finances, and we need to look at that. We've done other fundraisers in the past, and we'll keep looking at that. We've been very fortunate from the point of view of having so many of the public made donations, and a large part of the money we've spent, as you know, has come from libel damages which were paid into the fund. So we'll continue to explore it. We certainly need to be looking at income generation over the next months.
There must be a huge pressure on you, knowing that you've always got to look for money though.
Well, we'd love nothing more to find Madeleine, and then we wouldn't have to worry about that. You're absolutely right. Our focus is the search for Madeleine, and without the authorities conducting that, then the onus is on us, and we don't think that's right. The onus should be on the governments to do more. We'd love to give that pressure away. You're right. And you mentioned the libel trials. How do you feel now that Amaral's book is going to be on the shelves here? Yeah, so, well, as we've already alluded to, anyone who wants to convince people that Madeleine is dead without evidence to support it, their motives have to be questioned. But today the focus is on asking the public to help us petition the governments to do more. Do you feel that you should be chasing libel action? Some people might say, why don't you just leave all the libel stuff to one side? Why try and silence your critics?
Well, obviously we've talked about this in great detail previously. The reason why we had to take action was because we strongly felt it was damaging the search to find Madeleine. And as Jerry's just said, that is our ultimate goal, is to find Madeleine.
And just finally, can you update people, where are you now? I mean, recently you went over to Germany, you translated all your literature into German. So can you update people, where are you now? Have you got any new leads? What's happening with your investigations?
Well, I'd like to say to you that we did have some hot leads, but the very fact that we're calling for a complete review to identify further areas for investigation is telling you that more needs done. All the information needs to put onto one database, because that may be the way that we find the key bit of information, a missing piece of the jigsaw.
So at the moment you're worried that there isn't even a central database, so the information won't be not getting cross-referenced or shared.
Yeah, there's information in lots of different centres that hasn't been brought together, and there could be two key bits of information that individually don't seem key, but put together could give you some valuable information that could take you that one step closer to finding Madeleine. So it just seems an obvious and crucial thing to do, and this is why reviews are done time and time again in this country on major investigations.
So you must be frustrated that the government has carried out a scoping study into whether there should be a review, but then no action has been taken.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for. We want to see what action, we want metrics, we want deliverables, and we want the government to do more. Madeleine's a British subject. The government should be doing more to look out for her best interests.
And just finally, how can people sign the petition?
So it's on the iPetitions website, so it's www.ipetitions.com and then /petitions, but it's quite a complex link.
We'll put it on our website.
Thank you.